All right. Why don't we get started here? We have a few people. Looks like it's slowed down a little bit. People coming in, but we got a few coming in still. But we're going to get started here with our Cub Scout resident camp orientation for next week. And I want to welcome all of you here to our broadcast. Thanks for joining us this evening. We're really excited about the Cub Scout resident camp program. This has been a fantastic growing program for us. We're really excited about the number of scouts that are going to come out and join us this summer. Between the two sessions next week, we've got over 180 Cub Scouts that are coming out to camp, which is just awesome. That is so fantastic. And so we've got about 110 in the first session, Sunday through Wednesday, and then another 70 plus in the second session in the second half of the week. So we're really excited about all the scouts that are going to be joining us, and all of you or their families that are going to be joining us as well. So welcome. My name is Brian Murray. I'm the camp director here at RSR. We're joined also by our Tiger Cub there, our Tiger Scout, Jack Schneider, our program director. It's not often that you see a Tiger Cub with a goatee, but it works. It's a good look for him tonight. Getting into the Cub Scout spirit. So please feel free. We're going to talk about some things. I'll talk about some of the logistics and organizational pieces, and then Jack's going to talk a lot about our program that we have to offer for the Scouts. If you have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. Or you can unmute yourself or raise your hand to, your digital hand there to ask questions, but we'll also we'll have time for questions at the end as well. We won't get off the air here until we've answered any questions you might have. So we hope to make this very informative and are looking forward to having you all with us in camp. Some of the folks that are joining in right now are actually currently in camp with their older Scouts. So we appreciate them as well who are logged in. Okay. So let's first start by talking about our check-in procedures on, it says Sunday. It's Sunday or Wednesday, depending upon whatever your first day of your session is, because we do change over midway through. Our first session runs Sunday to Wednesday. The second session runs Wednesday to Saturday morning. So forgive me, it should say day one check-in procedures for whether that's Sunday or Wednesday. But regardless, the check-in time is going to be 1:00 p.m. We ask that the packs not begin, or families, however you are coming to camp. Some of you are coming as packs, some of you might be coming as individual families. However you are organized, we ask that you not begin gathering at the parking lot until really about 12:30. We will be ready to begin processing you into camp and checking you in around 1:00. But if you get there much earlier than 12:30, you're going to be waiting because we're just not ready, especially on Wednesday where we've got one group that's left. We have to turn over the camp and get it ready for the next group that's coming in a few hours later. So we're going to hold check-in at the Cub Scout Pavilion. So the check-in process is going to work very much the same way we did it last year, but for those of you that are used to our Scouts BSA camp, it may feel a little bit different than the way we do things with the troops. All of the Scouts and families are going to check in at the Cub Scout Pavilion. That is located right next to the parking lot. So you come in, you go park in the parking lot, and you'll see our all set up there at the pavilion where we will do check-in. You'll check in with me and we'll make sure we've got you recorded as for your attendance. And then that is also when we will do the medical recheck. So all the Scouts need to have that Part A through C scouting medical form, which does require a doctor's signature, right, for a physical within the last 12 months. For adults, we will accept the A and B for the experience of coming to camp, but if you want a buddy tag, if you are going to do any aquatic activities, we have to have Part C. So an adult cannot get a buddy tag without Part C, which is that 12-month physical signed by a doctor. So what'll happen there is essentially you come to me, we check in that, yep, we got you registered. You'll go behind me we'll have a few different medical officers stationed there, and you'll go to whichever one is available, sit down, do the med checks there. The Scout will talk to our medical officer, the adults will talk to our medical officer and answer a few questions about their health history of medical form. And then at that time, any medications for those Scouts would be turned over to the medical officer. And so those medications will be held by the medical officer and will be brought to meals. They'll also be available in other schedules as needed based on the medication. So first thing in the morning, late at night, whatever the schedules may be, we will take care of providing that for them at that time. So those medications should be brought with you over to the pavilion for the check-in along with the health form. You'll also pick up your t-shirt. All the scouts get a free t-shirt, and the adults, you had the option when you registered for camp to be able to purchase a t-shirt as well. If you purchased a shirt or your scouts ordered, gave us your size for the scouts shirts, you'll get your t-shirts right there. And then from there, our staff guides will escort you to the campsites. So wherever you're going to be going from there, our staff guides will take you down there. Because of the I'll get to those med questions in 1 second there in the chat. Because of the number of people that are coming into camp and the fact that many are coming as individual families, some are coming as packs, it's kind of a large number of groups. Please, the degree to which we can limit the need for vehicles to transport gear into the campsites is valued. We have the roads in some parts of camp, depending upon where you're going, are really only one-way passable. And so if we put too many vehicles into the camp at one time, that makes it very difficult for traffic to get through. So if you can bring the gear in backpacks or other ways to get the gear to the site, that would be fantastic. The medications, the questions in the chat there about medications all contained in a labeled zip bag. One of the issues with medications is all medications that are prescription must have the scout's name on that prescription. Anything that might be over-the-counter medication also needs to have the scout's name written on it, but the prescription meds definitely need to have the scout's name. Sometimes parents and scouts may share the same medication. They may swap it back and forth for that. The patient's prescription, the child's or the patient's name needs to be on the prescription meds. Sorry about that, stumbling on that. We will gather that up and we'll hold that in a bag with the scout's name on it that our EMT will maintain control of and bring to that. Rescue inhalers, anything that's a rescue inhaler or an EpiPen, things that are needed for immediate use, those may be kept on the scout or in your hands if you're going to be traveling with the scout. So those can certainly do that. In terms of personal administration of the medication, we would prefer, in particular in terms of the policies of the health department and such, we would prefer to hold on to those medications so that we have them accessible anytime they might be needed. You can certainly help with the administration of those when it comes time to do that, but rather than keeping them in a tent or a place like that, to be able to keep that locked in the health lodge. Some medications require refrigeration. We can provide that as well. But we would bring them to the meals, or we would bring them wherever you need, at whatever schedule they need to be administered. And you absolutely can help with the administration of that. If there's something beyond that, if you want to reach out to our medical officer, I'm going to share his email in a little bit, and you can communicate that as far as maybe other arrangements, depending upon the situation. Adults, you may hold on to your own medication. If you choose, we just make sure that they are secured, that they're not going to become accessible to anybody else in your personal storage area. Okay, a couple things, and we'll come back a little bit more to the health and safety stuff in a bit here. But I wanted to make sure we touched on the requirements for the adults that are coming to camp. This is a program that is about parent or PAC adult participation. It's not a provisional program where we provide staffing for overnight supervision for the scouts. So every scout needs to come either with a parent or as part of their PAC, their home PAC. So the home PAC can have a couple of leaders that are providing support and supervision for multiple members of their PAC, or it can be individual parents or a combination thereof. But this is not a program where a scout can be dropped off and without any prior arrangement and pick them up on Wednesday. We don't have the staffing for that. So I just want to make sure we're clear on that. For a PAC, all the scouting YPT rules apply here. So if you're organized as a PAC and attending as a PAC, you need to have 2 registered adult leaders. That's 2 adult leaders that are registered with Scouting America that are at least 21 years of age or older. And if there are any girls in that PAC unit, then one of those registered adult leaders has to be female. So those are BSA, national BSA rules for overnight camping activities. We also have a requirement that is through New York State that all adults that are coming to camp need to be run through a New York State criminal background check. And we take care of that. You don't have to do anything for that necessarily. And it doesn't cost you or the PAC any money. But in order to do that, we're pulling the data from the registration that you have done in Black Pug to register your scouts and your adults for camp. So what that means is we're pulling all the names, we're pulling all the dates of birth, and we're submitting that to New York State for clearing those individuals. If for some reason you have an adult that's planning on coming or spending some time, a significant amount of time at camp that is not registered in Black Pug, one, please register them in Black Pug tonight, because we will be, I'm going to basically pull all that data and we're going to send that to the state tomorrow so that we can get everybody background checked before your arrival on Sunday or Wednesday. Keep in mind that when you arrive, particularly if you're coming in with the group on Sunday, if an adult has not been previously registered and therefore they are not background checked, there's nothing that we can do to check that person on Sunday because the state office that does that is closed. Black Pug is the system that you use to register for camp, and so you would go back in through that. I will post a link to Black Pug while Jack's talking. I'll get into there and I'll post a link in there, but you can sign into your account and make sure that you're registered that your name is registered alongside your scout if you're attending, or if it's a PAC basis, PAC leader, make sure that all the adults that are planning to attend are registered. That's also important because we need to make sure we have enough tents and space for each PAC or each group, family unit, things like that. So if we have surprise people that check in on Sunday that we weren't counting on, that could change how we do the campsite assignments. And it's really hard to make those changes after you've started arriving. So please make sure if you're coming to camp that you are registered within Black Pug for that system. Okay, and again, we'll take care of the New York State background check. We just need everybody registered within our registration system for camp in order to do that. In terms of BSA's youth protection, we are requiring that everybody that is coming to camp does have a current certification in youth protection. That's the training. Even if you are not a registered leader within your PAC, youth protection is something you can still do. You would go to the link at my.scouting.org and complete the training for youth protection. It is free. It's going to cost you about 1 hour of your time if you're not currently registered to complete that training. But we do require that all adults have youth protection training prior to coming to camp. There is within some folks may be familiar with the BSA registration changes that took effect last fall for the national organization. If this was a scout camp out for the older scouts, the scouts BSA level 10 and age 10 and above, then every single adult staying over in camp would have to be registered with BSA. That there is an exception for that rule for Cub Scouts, which is that if you're attending as a PAC, if there are PAC leaders that are registered, then parents may attend with their child that are not registered with Scouts BSA if they are attending with their own child. They can do that, but not if it's, other kinds of situations. Like I can't be, if I'm not registered, I can't bring my child and my, another family's child who's, sending them with me to go to camp. I can't do that unless I'm registered with BSA as an adult leader within that PAC. You can only have responsibility for your own child. I talked about the health form, the BSA health and medical record for adults. Let me address that confusion in a second. The BSA health and medical record, that's the health form I mentioned a little while ago. You do need to have the health form for all participants need to have the BSA health form. For scouts, they have to have Part C, which is the part that requires the doctor's signature indicating a physical within the last 12 months. For adults, you do not need to have the Part C, but if you don't have the Part C, you will not receive a buddy tag, which means you will not be able to use the waterfront. So if you'd like to use the waterfront, you would need to have the Part C with the doctor's signature. So to the question in the chat. I will post the Black Pug link when I'm done talking, so I can go and find the link and post it for you. The link that I just posted is the link to get to the youth protection training for national. So I'm hoping everybody has youth protection that's on this call at this point. All has youth protection, but if you don't, you would go to my.scouting.org in order to complete that training course before Sunday. So that's just where you can get the training for youth protection. The Black Pug link, which is where everybody should be registered for camp, I will post that in there as soon as I'm done talking and Jack's talking, so I can get into the site and put that in the chat there for you. And that's where we need everybody to be registered. So hopefully that addresses confusion. So a parent that's attending does need to be registered in Black Pug because you're coming to camp. And you also need to have youth protection training, which if you don't currently have youth protection training, you can get at my.scouting.org. Hopefully that clarifies things. B2 has a spot for so the question's about the health form. When there is a spot on B2 that has a signature for a doctor, if there are medications that have been prescribed, that a doctor can sign that form to address the medications. Part C of the scouting form is, Jack, can you pull that the link up to the scouting medical form and throw that in the chat box for me, please? The scouting medical form, Part C, is the physical. That's the part where the doctor has said, yes, the scout had a physical on this date within the last 12 months and signs that and has like height and weight and a bunch of other stuff. Parts A through B2 can be completed by a parent. Okay, the parent can complete everything up through from A to B2. It's health history, it's immunization dates, it's all the stuff that a parent has access to those records and can do that. The link that Jack just posted into the chat has the full form, and Part C is what's required for the youth as well, which is the doctor saying that, yes, this child had a physical within the last 12 months. By the way, as we're talking about all these things, there is a guide for, there is a planning guide for parents and leaders for Cub Scout resident camp, which is right on the front page of our camp website. Jack, can you throw that up in there too? That has all these details that we're talking about and many more that would be a good place to check. Okay, so again, if you're an adult that wants to do the aquatics activities, you would need the Part C. Question about using a school physical. The BSA's national policy is that only the scouting Part C is acceptable. We will accept a school physical form if it contains the information that is requested on the Part C. So if it has everything that's requested there and it's just on a different form, we will accept that. And it does need to be attached to the rest of the scouting form, right? A through B2 can all be completed by a parent, right? That doesn't require a doctor to do any of the rest of it. But you do need to submit that as well, because that's immunization dates, health histories, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Picture on the screen there is of our health officer, Josh Clark. Wanted to show you what he looks like so that if you have any questions, next week, you'll know who to look for. He is our health officer. He is an EMT. We actually have, yep. So all of this information that we're going over with you right now is in our leader's guide and parent and leader guide. So yep, absolutely. We'll make sure that is emphasized there in terms of getting the health form information out to you, but that's all in the guide. The emergency procedures for camp that we have are, we have 2 sirens that we use in the event of an emergency in camp. The first one is a siren that we would use in the case of a lost camper or lost bather type situation. And again, those of you that come to us through resident camp for the Scouts BSA, we do things a little bit differently with the Cub Scouts. If the siren goes off, that siren is going to go off 3 times a day for a brief test. You'll hear it go off for like a second, 1 or 2 seconds. It's basically just a test to make sure that the system is working. But if that siren goes off for a minute or longer at any point during the day, that means we need to assemble everybody. Our assembly location is different for Cub Camp than it is for our Scouts BSA camp. We will gather everyone at the Grizz Pavilion. The Grizz Pavilion is located right outside the dining hall. So basically come down to the dining hall area. We get everybody lined up by pack and take attendance that way and make sure that everybody's accounted for. Those are the times there, the 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock, that are for the test of the system. Again, it's only going to go off for a second or two at those times. You can totally ignore it if it only goes off for a second or two. If it goes off for a minute or longer, that's when we need everybody to get to the Goose Pavilion. The second siren that we use is for severe weather emergencies, and that is the what we call the Yelp, which is it sounds like an emergency siren, like a police car or an ambulance type siren. And we use that if there's some severe weather headed our way and we want to get people to shelter. So if you hear that siren, we would ask that everybody gather either at the dining hall or at Seneca Lodge, which is the large building down at the waterfront, and to go to whichever of those two locations is closer to where you are when you hear the siren. We will take attendance in both locations. Oftentimes during the day, families and dens are always traveling together, so it's pretty easy. They're all going to end up in the same place. If it happens to be in the evening where open program is going on and maybe some members of the den went to this activity and some members of the den went to a different activity, we're just going to ask you to go to whichever of those two is closer to where you are when you hear that siren. We do have 3 AEDs that are located throughout the camp in case we ever need them. One is at what we call the Ice House, which is down at the aquatics area. So basically at the waterfront is where one of the AEDs is. The second one travels with Josh throughout the day as the health officer. And the third one is here in the camp office. So if you need an AED during the time that you're at camp, those would be the locations. One other thing just to mention as far as these health form questions here, another thing to keep in mind is that if you have a form, a scouting health form, that the date of the physical has to be within the last 12 months, but it can extend till the end of the month. For example, if the scout had a physical on July 15th of last year, that physical will be accepted through the end of July this year. So any point in July of last year, the physical is still good for this year. So you get 12 calendar months out of it, basically. It's not like if you show up on July 27th and the physical last year was on July 26th, you're out of date. As long as you've got till the end of the month, basically, is how that works. Okay, couple other things as far as health and safety is that for our, we use some wristbands to identify different folks within camp. For our staff, we have a wristband that looks just like this one here that I'm wearing and Jack's got up there. We have a similar one that adults will be issued so that we know that they are checked in and registered to be here in camp. Sometimes we do have campers that leave during the week. This is much less common in Cub Camp, but sometimes it happens if a scout has to go to another commitment for something, Little League game or something. We have a camper release form that parents can fill out to take that child out of camp. And, we would ask that when a scout that's leaving, particularly those that are in a pack, that a leader from the pack just signs that form before they leave so that we know that the pack knows that they've left. And that's really just to make sure that the pack isn't confused thinking that they're missing a scout when they don't realize that the scout's on his way down the road to a Little League game because the parents picked him up. We talked about vehicles in camp. We want to try to minimize that in camp. As I said, a lot of our roads are not really two-way passable. And so we want to minimize traffic and we want to minimize any reason why vehicles would be forced to go off the road because the fields with the rain that we get, and we're expecting rain over the next few days here at camp. So that means our fields are going to continue to be a little bit soggy. Those vehicles go off the roads, they can really leave a big mess behind and potentially get stuck. And we just want to keep the camp looking as neat and clean for the next group that comes in as it is for you as you enter into camp. There is a 10-mile speed limit all throughout the camp. Once you pass the ranger's house at the entrance to camp and move from the paved road to the dirt road, 10 miles per hour throughout the camp for the rest of your stay in the property. And keep the vehicles off the grassy areas, as I mentioned, and please no riders in the backs of trucks or on trailers, as that's a big safety risk for that. For our communication, we use a Remind alert system as a way of getting information out to you during your time at camp. Many of you may have used Remind for Little League or soccer or school or other activities for your scouts. It can be you can receive these alert messages in one of two ways. It'll either come to you as a text message or as a notification from the app if you choose to download the app. The way to register for these messages is to register depending upon which session you're coming to. If you are coming to session 1, which is Sunday through Wednesday, you want to register for @1cub24 and send that text message to the number on the screen, which is 81010. If you're coming Wednesday to Saturday, session 2, you're going to send the class code @2cub24 to the same number, @2cub24 to 81010. And if you already have the app downloaded, you can just add a class and put that code in there, and it will add the class. Tim, yes, trailers will be allowed to be brought to the site and left there if you've got a unit trailer, a pack trailer. So you can either get text messages, or you can use the Remind app for that. We do have a daily newspaper in camp that one of our staff members puts out, and so that newspaper will be delivered to your trailer to your breakfast table every morning, and it will have information about. It'll have some funny content for the kids, and it'll also have information about schedules and some of the things that are going on at camp each day. We also have some email contacts there. My email address is campdirector@rsrbsa.org. Jack's is the same format, but program director@rsrbsa.org. And our food service director, Sean, his email is food@rsrbsa.org if you have a need to communicate with him. But I'm also going to show you in a second another way to share any dietary restrictions or such. But those are some of the email contacts, ways that you can reach out to us. Our health officer is medical@rsrbsa.org. So if you have questions about kind of medical policies or issues, you can reach out to Josh at that address, and he can answer questions for you. For our dining services, we do have a buffet style service that we do for meals, and our meals are at 8 o'clock, 12:30, and 6 o'clock each day. So if you have anybody, if within your party, yourselves, your children, your members of your pack, that have any food allergies or dietary restrictions, I'm going to leave this QR code up here on the screen here for a second. You can hit that QR code, and it'll open up a Google form where you can enter that information. That is the best way. You can email Sean, and if there's particular things that you want to discuss with him, but the best way to report those things is to use the QR code, because then he's got it all right there in a form that gives him the information for every scout and sorted by what week they're, what session they're coming to, and all that information is readily available to him. But if you have a particularly unique situation that you need to discuss with him, by all means, you can reach out to Sean at food@rsrbsa.org to discuss those concerns with him. The earlier, the better, particularly if it's something that's a little bit more novel in terms of dietary restrictions or food allergy situation. We're used to dealing with a lot of things like vegetarian and things of that sort, but if there's something a little bit more complicated, the more advanced notice we have, the better, so that we make sure that we have on hand the food that individual is able to eat. But Sean does a great job of taking care of us, and he'll take care of you next week as well. For the campsites that folks are going to be staying in, I want to show you what that looks like, because I know many of you are probably unfamiliar with camp at the Scout Camp. So pretty much everybody's going to be staying in these canvas wall tents on a platform, just like you see in the photograph here. So that platform deck is 9 feet wide by 7 feet deep, and has a canvas platform, a canvas tent that is set up on top of that. The height of the tent at the peak is about 6 feet, give or take. So that gives you some sense of the dimensions of where people are going to be staying. There are 2 cots per tent. Some of the campsites that folks will be staying in do have lean-tos. I know not everybody's necessarily comfortable with lean-tos, so we generally will not necessarily assign people to have to stay in a lean-to. Like, for example, when I'm assigning the number of people to stay in a site that has lean-tos, we won't necessarily put people with the expectation that some of them are going to have to stay in lean-tos. However, if you want to stay in a lean-to, you can shoot me an email, and then we can make that arrangement for you. Lean-tos can accommodate 4 people. They're open Adirondack style lean-tos, but they can accommodate 4 people. 2 double bunks is in that. The mosquito netting is truly up to you. I don't feel like it's been that terrible in terms of that, but if you wish to bring mosquito netting, you certainly can do so. We usually have it in the trading post. I don't know if we have any in stock at the moment. I forgot to check, but that's also sometimes something that can be purchased there as well. Our campsites are spacious. I know sometimes we get questions. I've already gotten the question a couple times, can people bring their own personal tents? You can, if you prefer to stay in the personal tent. We do have room in the campsites to be able to set up those tents. So the one thing is from Aaron with some experience there said hasn't needed his bug net for the last 3 years. So that's for everybody has different tolerance levels for that, I'm sure, but that's good experience wisdom there. Thanks, Aaron. One question that I've gotten already this year is, can we put another cot in that tent, like the one that you see on the screen there? The answer to that is no. We have health department requirements that we must comply with that require that we provide everybody with a certain amount of feet of space within their accommodations, and to put a third cot, into one of these tents would violate that. So we cannot put a third cot into that tent. If you choose to bring a family tent and set it up on the side that has multiple occupancy, you can choose to do that. But these tents can only be up to 2 people. That's a great tip in the chat box there. A red light can be very useful for scouts so as to not attract moths into the tent, and they can see things, but without if they're bothered by the moths being in there, a red light can be very good because that won't attract them as much. Thanks for that tip, Sarah. You can. So I've seen people put tents up inside one of our tents. It depends on the size of your tent. It depends on how your tent is structured and what kind of stability it has. You basically would be putting it on a wood platform, so you wouldn't have the ability to stake it down or anything like that. So depending upon what kind of a tent and whether it has what kind of a structure it has and whether it needs to be staked in order to be held upright, that your mileage may vary on that. But tent platform is 9 feet by 7 feet, and the peak of the canvas that you see there is about 6 feet tall. So we do have a latrine in each campsite. So those are the bathroom facilities in the campsite. It's not flush toilets, but we do have a composting latrine in each campsite. The actual question about questions about like the who's tenting with who is not something that we do. So we will provide, we're basically going to assign people to a campsite so that there's enough space for everybody in that we've assigned to that campsite. It is up to the pack, or it is up to the family that is camping there to decide who's tenting with who and how that is set up, as long as you're following the BSA guidelines for that. In Cub Scouts, parents can stay in a tent with their child. That's actually not permitted once you get to the Scouts BSA level. A parent is not permitted to tent with a child, even if it's of the same gender. But as far as, can I tent with my child? Sure, yes, that's something that that you all will have. We don't do tent assignments. We will assign people to a campsite, and then you guys will figure out, kind of who's tenting with who within that setup. And it could be that, if you have two dens with an odd number of people, that they will maybe have a scout from one den and a scout from another den tent together. That's it. The cross gender for parents, I don't think, I'd have to go back onto that. I don't believe that is permitted, but you guys handle the tent assignments. Okay, we don't do that. But parents can tent with a child while they are at camp. There is one shower house that is in camp, and it is near the dining hall. There are 12 individual stalls, so person goes in, uses the shower, locks the door behind them. So there's no like designated times for males or females or youth or adults or any of that kind of stuff. It's, if there's a stall available, you go in and use the shower stall. So that is located just near the dining hall. All right. We do also have commissioners that will be around during the week to check on things in the campsites. They'll help with the daily campsite visits and just check on things, make sure everything's going well for you. We have a quartermaster that is available in the same building as our trading post. Trading post is the camp store, so we have things like T-shirts and patches and apparel, of different kinds. There's also snacks, beverages, things of that sort that folks can get, and of course slushies. Slushies are the most popular item usually in the trading post. So you have that there, and in that same building we have a quartermaster, which has supplies if there are things that you might need, from like tools for things like that. Typically, Cub Scouts are not doing service projects like the older Scouts might be doing, so that's probably much less of a use for you guys. But we do have that available to us if that's or to you if that's needed. One thing that we do ask of you is to within the campsite there to have folks cleaning the latrine on a daily basis. The staff doesn't take care of the latrines out in the campsites. We take care of the common area settings, of which there are several throughout the camp. But if you could work together to just make sure that the latrines are swept out and cleaned each day. And part of that process is to there's a box of like wood chips and they're like pine shavings, and to put that down each seating hole of the latrine each day. That helps with the composting process. The two things that help with keep the smell down is putting those wood chips down near the hole each day, not urinal holes, sitting holes, and also to keep the lids down on the toilet seats, and that forces the flow of air up into the chimney and helps to make the latrines smell less. There are some wheelbarrows that are located on the side of the office, so you don't have to go all the way down to the quartermaster. The office right along the side there, we got about a half dozen wheelbarrows that are available to be used if you need those for arrival or departure. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jack to talk about our fun program opportunities for y'all.
Thank you, Brian. We are so excited. Of course, we're excited for all the administrative things too, but we're especially excited for the program that we're going to be offering you. So we have 3 1-hour sessions in the morning and 3 1-hour sessions in the afternoon. And then additionally, there will be an evening activity, which I will explain in a little bit, but that's kind of how your day is going to be structured. So after breakfast, you'll have a session 9 to 10, another one 10 to 11, another 11 to 12, then lunch at 12:30, and then a session from 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and 4 to 5. And then after dinner, there will be open program time, which I'll explain a little bit. So you'll travel together as dens. So, sorry, Brian. Oh, thanks. You'll travel together as dens. So, you'll be with people that you're hopefully somewhat familiar with, people that you're camping with, you're staying with. So with that, families, packs, we're not going to split you apart. We're going to keep you together. You're going to be able to go through the program all as one. There will be diversified instruction. So for those of you who are unaware, there was recently an overhaul of the Cub Scouting program. And so for a lot of the adventures that we're going to be doing here in camp, there are the same adventure exists for different ranks, and so we're going to be making sure that we're catering to all those different needs for all those different scouts that are going to be here. And then, as I mentioned, that there will be open program time where there will be, which is less structured, so it's not going to be in those blocks, and you're not going to be scheduled to go to this area or this area or this area. We're going to have a bunch of different places open throughout camp, and your scouts will have the opportunity to pick and choose different areas that they'll go to. The goal of our Cub Scout program, and for those of you who are familiar with our Scouts BSA program, it's a little bit different. The goal is really fun. Well, that's not to say that the goal of Scouts BSA is not to have fun, but Scouts BSA is much more requirement and advancement focused. Our Cub program, it's more about trying new things and having fun while doing so. And we do, this all comes with the understanding that this may be some of their first times, maybe even some of your first times camping. And so just our job is mainly to make sure that you're here, you're having fun, and we're facilitating you guys having a good time on a camping trip. But that being said, you will have your Cubs will have the ability to work on several adventures. But again, fun is kind of taking precedence over advancement. All of the adventures, which I'll go over the adventures in a little bit that we're offering, they're all elective adventures, none of the required adventures. But those opportunities will be available. So the adventures that will be offered are Let's Camp, fishing, BB, archery, swimming, and boating. Okay, and those will be offered at all of the levels. So, for example, for fishing, we'll offer tiger fishing, not fishing for tigers, but tiger fishing, lion, wolf fishing, bear fishing, Webelos, AOL, etc. And that'll be the case for all of them because again, the Cub program, they've changed it a little bit, they've streamlined it, and so for each of those adventures, there will be one for each rank. And I should also mention too that at the end of the week, all of the advancement stuff, all the adventures we completed, we will provide you with a list of what has been completed. So it's not going to be like, oh yeah, did you do all these BB things? And everyone's got to remember. No, we'll send you a list. We'll let you know what you got done. Yes, I can repeat that list. So we'll be doing Let's Camp, fishing, BB, archery, swimming, and boating. And the Let's Camp, I know there's not one for AOL. We'll be doing the high-tech outdoors adventure. Need to have a current fishing license. Brian, do you know the answer to that?
Just catch and release.
Okay, catch and release. Oh, Brian, can I get the next slide?
Sure.
Thanks. So yeah, this is in more detail what we'll be offering. So we'll be split up. So right there's 6 blocks and we'll have 6 different program areas running. So we will have aquatics, which one day we'll offer swimming, the other day we'll offer boating. We'll have shooting sports, which will offer BB and archery simultaneously, but you will get to choose. So one day half the pack will do one, and the other day half the den will do the other, and then you'll flip flop. So you'll have the opportunity to do both. Um, we'll also be offering our Scoutcraft area, which will have fishing one day and geocaching the other. We'll be opening our climbing tower, which will have we have a beautiful new bouldering pavilion. So bouldering will be available, climbing will be available, as well as some field games, which kind of builds into our COPE program that we have in Scouts BSA. We will also be offering, we also have the Cub Pavilion set up. That's where they'll work on that Let's Camp adventure, some other things like that. And then we'll also have nature immersion, which will be going on in your sites. And this will be an excellent opportunity to for our ecology director to come down and guide you through some of the, some of the natural aspects, more appreciation of the great outdoors. Again, as I mentioned, there's an adventure for each rank that will be going on at each of the areas. Some of the areas, such as I'll just use climbing for an example, there isn't really a good adventure that fits very neatly into that box. So that area you won't be working on an adventure, but at a lot of the areas that have suitable adventures, you'll be able to do those there. And then finally, at the end, we'll have a closing campfire that'll be put on by the Cubs. All the dens will have the opportunity to create and present a skit to us at the end. Oh, this is an excellent question. Cub ranks that can do BB and archery. There are BB and archery adventures for every rank above Lion. So everyone who's coming to camp. Checking in a day late. Will that limit what programs my son will be included in? So it depends. If by a day late, if you mean on Monday, if you mean on the very morning of day 2 and won't be missing any of the if you're getting here before 9 on day 2, you're not missing anything. If you're getting there a little bit later, afternoon of day 2. Okay. So the best part is, and actually I'm getting to that right now, is we have a bunch of evening activities. And so a lot of those areas that they may have gone to in the morning will be open in the evening as well. I can't, I'm not going to say that everything is going to be exactly one-to-one adventure-wise and requirement-wise what was offered in the morning, but your cub will have the opportunity to at least participate in a lot of those events that he may be missing. So just kind of a brief overview of our open program, so that unscheduled time when y'all get here. Yep. Light vest will be provided for boating. Good question. When y'all first get here, we'll go through that check-in process, we'll do swim checks, all that kind of stuff. And then after dinner, we'll have our camp-wide game. So we're gonna have a great game. It'll be Magic Forest themed. We'll get all involved. The staff are gonna be in fun costumes. Your scouts will have the opportunity to, fight through a magic forest. And then after that, we'll have an opening campfire. And that campfire is put on by the staff. I've seen a lot of the content. It's really good. It's really funny. So I hope that you will all enjoy it as well. And that'll be how we close out our first day. Yeah, so swim tests will be done on that first day after med checks are done. So it'll be in that time between you arriving and dinner. And to the next question, yes, fishing poles will be provided. So those exist at our quartermaster, what Brian mentioned earlier, the place where we have all those sorts of things. We do have fishing poles. They will be provided. Do adults do swim tests? Yes, that is actually a very good question. Adults do swim tests, and here's why. Because when it comes to boating, boating is where it really comes into play. There has to be at least one adult has to be a swimmer in the boat. So the expectation for the way a lot of our programs are designed is that we're not necessarily expecting the cubs to pass that swim test. They may take the swim test. They have the opportunity to take the swim test if they'd like, but the expectation is that we can run the program without them necessarily having to qualify as swimmers. Where the adults come in is that, again, if an adult is in one of those boats, an adult who's a swimmer has to be in a boat, and that way all the cubs or non-swimmers are fine to go out in that boat. Otherwise, like a cub who's a non-swimmer, for example, could not take out a kayak, or two cubs could not take out a canoe without being swimmers. So that's where that adult taking the swim test piece really comes into play. So we have to have a swimmer in each boat essentially, and that's where the adult leaders come. And yes, we do. We also in the quartermaster have bait. Adults, yes, the adult swim tests are done at the same time. They'll all be facilitated together. Yes, they'll be done simultaneously. So yeah, what do you have to do to pass the swim test? Sure. So you have to swim 75 yards, current water temperature. I don't know. I'll have to go down there and check it out a little bit later. So you have to swim 75 yards using one of the approved strokes, which is pretty much anything that's on a doggy paddle. And then you have to do 25 yards on your back, elementary backstroke, and then you just have to float for a little bit. So that's the big like swimmer's test. And then there's also a smaller beginner's test, which allows them to go out into, I guess it depends on how tall you are, but water that's usually not over, it's not over my head, and I'm only 5'5", so the water's not too deep in the beginner's area, and that's a much shorter, just swim a certain distance test. We all hope it's a nice afternoon next Wednesday. And so, as I mentioned, there's going to be some kind of unstructured program time that'll happen after dinner. So at this time, swimming will be offered, boating will be offered, fishing, a bunch of different shooting sports, so slingshot, BB gun, archery, and also the trading post will be open. Go get some merch, go get some swag, go get some, any sort of little things you need. That'll be open as well. Now, with that being said, when I say all these things will be open, that doesn't necessarily mean they will all be open on every day or they'll all be open at once, depending on staffing, depending on the supervision that we need from our side. We might not be able to, let's say, open all three ranges. Well, I know we won't be able to open all three ranges at once, but we won't be able to necessarily open everything every day. but these will be offered. You will have the opportunity to do all of these things in your open program time. So let's say that you know, you and your Cubs really enjoyed shooting BB guns. You'll have the opportunity to do that even more. You'll have the opportunity to do that extra. Slingshot, which is not offered during our scheduled program, you'll have the opportunity to do that after as well. There is also a slingshot award, I should mention. Or not award, excuse me, adventure. And then on our last day, so excuse me, not our last day, but our last full day, we'll have a big we'll all go meet down by the waterfront and the big Seneca Lodge, and we'll do paper airplane making. So we'll have instructions for you, and there'll be, a lot of time you can go down there, set up who can make the coolest paper airplane, we have a nice deck that you can launch the paper airplanes off of and, see how far you can watch them glide. So that'll be our big like fun activity that we can all, and of course, again, all these are optional, but that'll be just another thing that's another opportunity that you and your Cubs will have the opportunity to do. Yes, we can accommodate late swim tests. I would also like to mention one more thing about our program is that your dens will all be assigned staff guides. So we call these den chiefs. This will be a member of the staff who will be with you, especially in the beginning part of the week. That'll just be helping you find your way around camp, get settled in, all those sorts of things. So don't worry if it's your first time here and you're not sure on some of the logistics or some of the program or what the expectations are. We'll have a staff guide who is there to help you ease into that process. You aren't going with your den. Are you assigned to a group? Yes, everybody will be assigned to a den here at camp. Whether that be the den or pack that you're normally with, or if it's one that's just for camp, you will be assigned, you will be in a group. There's no one who's going to be just kind of a floater. Okay, does anybody have any program questions? The evening of day 2, the only thing being offered is the paper airplanes. No. So on the evening of the second full day, when we're offering the paper airplanes, that'll be offered after we offer all of those open things. So all of those open programs that were listed there, like the fishing, the BB guns, the archery, the slingshot, etc., those will be offered after the first full day and after the second full day. Additionally, on the second full day, after that, we'll be offering paper airplanes.
If I could just jump in there, Jack.
Okay.
So basically the open programs will happen right after dinner. So think about 7 o'clock ish, and the paper airplanes would happen probably at about 8 o'clock ish on that night after you've had the opportunity to do those other activities.
I saw a question about polar bears swim. So for those of you that are unfamiliar with our polar bear swim, it's you come down before breakfast, you get to hop into the pond. It's nice, it's cold. Well, it's cold outside. The water is usually nice and warm. We can offer that. I will, if that's something that has a lot of interest, I will talk to our aquatics director and we'll see if we can get that done for you. Typical bedtime, it really kind of depends. Hopefully we're really tiring everybody out and everything like that. What I can say from our end is that the latest our programming will end is, thinking especially about thinking especially about the first arrival day and after the second full day, the latest our program will end is about 9 o'clock. After that, you all go back to your sites and, if they want to stay up, hang out, have a campfire, that's more than okay. But, just think about we're going to have flag raising at 7:50. So just making sure that everyone's getting an appropriate amount of sleep to be ready for then. And that includes adult leaders too. Okay, good. So we have some interest in the polar bear swim. I'll talk to our aquatics director about that. Yeah, so uniforms, they will need them for like dinner and for our retreat ceremony, but they won't have to be wearing them at all times. So just during those 2 times, man. Yeah, class A/field uniform, however you want to put that. a lot of requests for the polar bear. So I'll see what I can do for that. Any other questions? Okay, Brian.
So we've got some things on the screen just as a reminder for things that may oftentimes be forgotten. Extra shoes, closed-toed shoes, please. At camps, not sandals. Those little rocks have a way of jumping up and biting you on the toe if you're wearing open-toed shoes. Flashlights, shower shoes, rain gear, swimsuit, backpack. These would all be things that would be encouraged. Um, we, as to the question, we want to limit the number of vehicles. So particularly for packs, if we could combine gear into one vehicle to take down, that's what we're trying to do. If you're coming by yourself, we can either try to combine some people to take gear down, or if you can take it down, depending upon where you're headed, if you just carry, a few things, that's fine. We're trying to minimize the number of vehicles. So packs coordinating that is what we're looking for, to minimize the number of vehicles going down there. Imagine like for session 1, we've got about 110 scouts. For session 2, it's over 70 scouts. If every single family brings a vehicle down, 100 cars going down there is just not at all possible. So we're looking to consolidate that as much as possible. All right, so that's kind of the formal program that we have for you this evening, giving you a lot of information. Apologies for any kind of confusions or overloading of information. Jack did post earlier the leader's guide for you, the family and leader guide. Backpack would just be for getting gear in. Like you're not going on big hikes or anything like that, but just if you're looking for a backpack to carry some supplies, your clothing, things like that into camp, that would be suggested. The guide for parents and leaders is right on the front page of our website at rsrbsa.org. There's one for the Scouts BSA and there's one for Cub Scouts. The Cub Scout one goes into everything we talked about here and probably a little bit more and in depth. So if there's anything you missed or had questions about, we will be forwarding this video out. So we've been recording this and we'll forward this out to everybody once we get a chance to do that. In the next day or so, and we'll send this to everybody that's registered for camp, so you'll have an access to this. This will be posted on our YouTube page, so you can share this with other people, other parents that weren't on the call tonight. Yes, anybody that's coming in late, and really this goes for anybody that comes into camp. When you come in as the group, when you check in, whether it be Sunday or Wednesday, you're going to go to that Cub Pavilion like we described. You're going to check in and mass, and then you're going to head off to the campsites. At any other time when people come in or leave camp, we ask you to sign in and sign out of the office. So if your scout is arriving late, as was asked about, you would just sign in at the office. Sign in at the office, and we will escort you down to the site. We'll get you to where you need to go to connect you with your group, find your site, do your med check, all those things that you missed by coming in a little bit late. We'll take care of all that for you. And if anybody's coming in or out during the time that you're in camp, maybe another parent stopping by to drop off some sneakers or something like that, whatever the case may be, you check in at the office and we'll guide you from there as to where you need to go. Yep. Yeah, I would suggest, it's not a bad idea to have, even if it's a string bag or a small backpack that the scout has that they carry with, some gear during the day, some supplies that they might want during the day. All those things are helpful there to have a backpack that you can do. Yes, if you're leaving early, same thing. Sign out of the office, please, so that we know that you're departing.
Brian, if I could just hop in,
Sure.
I just heard from our aquatics director. Yes, we will be offering one polar bear swim during each session. So, woo!
We do not have a camp-wide cell phone policy. We leave that to the units. So I'm going to defer that question if your scout is attending with a pack, and I'm going to defer to the pack leadership as to what their policy may be as far as scouts bringing cell phones to camp. cell phones can be both a blessing and a curse with campers. It's usually something we deal with more with the older scouts than it is with the Cub Scouts, certainly. But on the one hand, they can be used as effective tools for researching for merit badges, for taking pictures of all their fun times and stuff like that, for communicating with home. They can also potentially be tools to encourage homesickness. If the scout is communicating with home, sometimes those contacts, those phone calls actually make homesickness worse. So that's a concern. There's also a concern that sometimes if there's a situation that happens where, my tent mate is looking at me funny, my tent mate is, bugging me, staying up too late or something like that, and the phone call is going home, it's not going to the unit leader that's in the campsite that can actually help them and to respond to that situation and deal with that situation for them. So for those reasons, I'm going to defer that question to the pack leadership and let them decide how they would like to handle that. We don't have a cell phone policy. We don't check bags for cell phones or anything like that. Other questions that folks might have? All right, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just turn off the recording. We will be posting this to YouTube, and I will send out a link to everybody that's registered, that's provided their emails to us in the registration. We will send out a link to this in the next 24 hours. But the video will be posted on the camp's YouTube page. And so you'll be able to access it there and share it or watch it again if you missed anything. I'm going to turn off the recording now. Sometimes people like to ask questions when the recording's not going on. That's fine. But Jack and I will stick around for a while. And, if you are, if you're all set, have a wonderful rest of your evening. We look forward to seeing you next week. Let me just answer that quick question there. Is Black Pug registration handled by the packs, or is individual registration required? It depends on how you signed up. If some packs registered their people together, in other cases, parents created the registration. It's whoever went to the website and signed up the scout for camp, that's the Black Pug registration. So if you as the parent did that, you have the ability to go into your Black Pug account and see that registration. If you gave money to a pack leader and said, please sign us up for summer camp, and they signed you up, then they're the ones who have the Black Pug access. Hopefully that makes sense there. But anyway, have a wonderful evening. We'll stick around and answer additional questions, but I'm just going to turn off the recording now.